Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of CRATV, where we talk about politics, policy, and politicians, all from a conservative perspective, right here in the great state of California. So please take a moment, like and share the program so that your friends can know where the conversation is taking place. Also, if you haven't already done so, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And in the case of Facebook and YouTube, make sure you hit the notification button. That way you get the notifications as soon as we go live, and you can participate in the live chat as the program is going on. Also, please remember, CRA is a grassroots volunteer organization. We are working to help elect conservatives to all levels of government, but we need your help. A movement requires people. Guess what? You are people. Funny how that works, huh? Anyway, folks, we need your support. We need you to become a member. Just follow the join link in the description of this video, and you too can become a member. It's really that simple. All right, let's get on to today's topic. Today is Juneteenth. Now, Juneteenth is a holiday that is generally celebrated in the black community, and it's basically represents the day in which freed slaves learned that they were freed via the Emancipation Proclamation. But rather than me go through all the details, I want to show you a real quick video, and then afterwards, after the video, we're going to have Johnnie Morgan, the president of the California Republican Assembly, on to talk a little bit more about Juneteenth and what Juneteenth means to him. So here's the video. Check it out, and we'll be back with Johnnie in just a sec. Johnnie, welcome back to the program.
Well, thank you, Craig. Good to be here.
All right. Hey, happy Juneteenth to you. I wanted you to take a moment. We just watched a brief video, kind of, giving kind of the specifics of the details of the history of Juneteenth. But I want you to kind of share that story, the story of Juneteenth, from your perspective.
Well, from my perspective, Juneteenth really is a time of celebration from a historical perspective. If you can just imagine, slaves being freed and you not finding out about it until 2 years later. It's definitely easy to understand why there was such a celebration and why they were so jubilant when the information finally got to them. Messages traveled a lot slower in those days. Mm-hmm. And so the ancestors, kind of think, was so jubilant that has passed down from generation to generation when you think about that historic occasion.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of funny because, in the era of everything right now that we're dealing with and the challenges that we're dealing with, it's easy to get lost how far black folks have come here in these United States from the Emancipation Proclamation all the way through until today. There's some folks who want to act like we've made absolutely no progress, but I think I just think a simple look at history makes it easy to see that while we may not be where we want to be yet, we may not have it be there yet, but we seem to be pretty well on our way.
I would totally agree with that. I think we're living in a time now, as far as African Americans are concerned, where we in the United States of America are in the best place in the world to be. Yes, there's still challenges, and there probably always will be challenges. But what we have to look at is the progress and the improvements that are being made and continue to strive.
Right. I've said this. I said this numerous times. We are the freest, most educated, and wealthiest peoples of African descent in the entire world. And I challenge anybody to show me statistics that prove otherwise. I also, though, once again, look at, like, my father was, he was a World War II veteran. He was a fully trained electrician, came out of World War II, couldn't get a job, couldn't join the electricians union because his father wasn't a member of the union. And at that time, they didn't allow blacks to be a part of the union. Mm-hmm. So I look at the challenges that my father dealt with, the generation before me, the generation, unlike myself, who I grew up, quote unquote, equal under the law. And I see, at the very least, when it comes to the law, I see tremendous strides that we've made. But I also see, once again, that we still have some ways to go.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think if we look at the leadership we have in the White House now, a tremendous amount of progress is being made on behalf of African Americans and in the African American community. I think we have more input that is active in the White House than we've ever had in recent times. If you look back when President Trump was first elected, and kind of go through the period when the focus was on unemployment. Well, black unemployment now is at its lowest rate than it's been in decades. Mm-hmm. And it is a result of the policies that this president has put forth and that are being supported.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I could go on and on, but, please interject.
Well, no, exactly. He's done things that Democrats said couldn't get done. They said that 2% growth for the economy was the new normal, and not only is he growing the economy, but once again across the board, including amongst African Americans, against black people, we've seen a decrease in unemployment, record employment numbers in the black community. We've seen for the first time wages. For the first time in like several presidencies, we are actually seeing wages are actually going up under President Trump. In particular, wages for black people are going up under President Trump. Yes. And those are just the economic numbers. Mm-hmm. If you look at it, things like criminal justice reform, where they went back and they looked at, While I believe we all supported while the crime bill was good in that it helped get more cops on the streets, it helped to introduce community policing, and it helped make a number of communities, urban communities in particular, safer. It wasn't without its challenges, and it did actually wind up putting some people in prison for relatively minor offenses, or didn't necessarily have equality in sentencing. Well, guess what? Democrats have been in charge. It went through Clinton. It went through President Obama, and they didn't fix it. They didn't change it. Along comes President Trump, and it's changed.
Yes.
Right now we're dealing with everything that's been going on with Black Lives Matter and the protests relating to the death of George Floyd. And once again, when stuff like this happened under Democrats, no real policy change. First thing President Trump does is he institutes an executive order, signs an executive order, trying to address it through additional training, through tracking, and all of this stuff. So he actually does something and spurs the Senate to introduce legislation to address the issue. Yes. And once again, these are all areas of progress made in less than one term under President Trump. And I think that while Democrats may have reasons that they choose to dislike him, I think that this is a feather in their cap. This is something they need to give President Trump and acknowledge his successes when it comes to advocating on issues that impact the black community.
I agree with you totally. Absolutely. And, you know, we talk a lot about the faith-based community. And, you know, since I've been involved in politics and I've been active and visible in Republican politics now for over 30 years, this is the first president that I've seen that has taken such an active interest in the faith-based community to the extent of having faith leaders, Black faith leaders, invited to the White House to discuss the issues and come up with some policies that can be implemented and benefit the faith-based community in the African American communities throughout this nation. And I think, you know, giving that type of effort, putting forth that type of foresight, and bringing folks in who can help solve the problems, and then putting forth policies that do just that. You mentioned, you know, the First Step Act, okay, and that's been an issue. Criminal reform has been an issue in the Black community for quite a while now, okay, and then here we have a president that tackles that issue, takes into account what's been going on, and then puts forth policies to improve it and to make the types of changes that benefit African Americans on a very large scale, because we all know that African Americans are disproportionately imprisoned for some of the same crimes that other folks do. They get more time.
Right. Well, the main thing though that he's doing is, even though, like I always say this, it's not about race, but it does disproportionately affect different races. And the key is that he's focusing on the underlying issue, not the black-white issue, not the race issue, but once again, the underlying issue. And that fundamentally is the key. According to the Constitution, we're equal under the law now. Yeah. So the key is we've got to make sure that we're addressing issues and we're addressing them from those specific things. Like, you know, I always say, to me, the biggest issue in the Black community is fatherlessness. It is children growing up in single-parent households. It's fathers not being in the home with their with their children. Too many of our children are growing up with their fathers outside of the home, and you can't tell me when every statistic shows you're more likely to wind up in jail. You're more likely to live in poverty. You are more likely to have all sorts of issues, because you don't have two parents. And I'm just like this. If you just like it, if nothing else, two incomes are better than one. Two heads are better than one. Two people to share the load, two sets of hands are better than one. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, we just seem to, you know, we don't want to focus on the core issues. And I think if we focus on the core issues like President Trump does, I think we solve a lot of challenges that currently face our community.
I agree. You're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, some of the challenges that face our community, you know, has to do with employment, job opportunities, and businesses in the inner cities. And to that extent, you know, I applaud the president for putting forth legislation that brings the opportunity zones into play, and giving businesses an incentive to go into the inner city and to build businesses and to hire those folks within the areas that those businesses exist.
Well, what's also interesting is within that are also opportunities for Black-owned businesses. You know, for businesses, for the people who live in those communities to be able to fund, because a lot of times it's a matter of being able to get access to capital. Well, all of a sudden, these are the sorts of programs that can take something that may look like it's not going to pencil out into something that can be a profitable business venture. I think his acumen in business, in particular, is what has helped everybody. But here's the thing: the rising tide lifts all boats, and we've seen that happen within our community as well. It is astounding to me that it seems like Democrats, no matter how much he does, no matter how much success he has, they just absolutely, between them and the mainstream media, they just absolutely refuse to give him credit for that. But I think it also does one other thing really bad, is that it takes away from the successes that black community is having right now in this country. And it's important to talk about it, because that's what gives people hope. When they see other people succeeding, they know they can do it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny. I hear, we're hearing a lot of talk about racism, but I've always found that the biggest racists that I've found generally tend to be liberals. That's because, in particular, when they see someone like you or someone like me, and I'm not talking like they talk, I don't believe what they believe politically, or I'm wearing my Donald Trump hat, or you're wearing your MAGA hat, all of a sudden they look at you like, how dare you leave the plantation? Am I wrong? All of us, and they feel like they can be even more disrespectful to us as Republicans, as black Republicans, than they are other Republicans. And the saddest part is sometimes I feel like, some of my black Democrat friends sit there and let them do it. I've found that conservatives have generally been if I want to talk about people who judge me by the content of my character, by the quality of my work, it's always been conservatives. It's always been conservatives from the time I was in college all the way, and which, by the way, is one of the things that really made me open to really taking a look at the Republican Party, was because when I ran for student body president, I was Chico State. I was the first black student body president. And when I ran, the Young Americans for Freedom, the Yaffers, and anybody who knows them knows they're the conservative of the conservative. They supported me because I was a finance major, because I had a plan for fiscal accountability for student funds. I laid out a detailed 9-point plan of what I wanted to do. Well, 3 points with 3 subpoints. But anyway, I laid out exactly what I wanted to do. And the Progressive Student Union, which is the group way on the left, they supported me because they thought that having a black AS president would mean that student issues for students of color would be championed. So here it was, the people that normally would say, well, we should judge people by the content of their character, they were judging me by the color of my skin. And the people that they would say, that they would call racist, the people that they would say, well, they're going to judge you by the color of their skin, by the color of your skin, they were judging me by the content of my character. Wow. And that was a real eye-opener for me. And so as I went to CRA, as I worked with conservative members, I've seen them judge people based on the work that they are doing to help elect like-minded conservatives and advance conservative values. And that's how, someone like you, who's, like you said, who's committed over 30 years to this party and to advancing conservative principles, is now statewide president.
Yeah.
I mean, who would think, if you were to ask some Democrat, if you were to tell them that the president of the largest, oldest, and most conservative grassroots volunteer organization in the state of California is black, I bet you they wouldn't believe you.
You're probably right.
But here you are, and you are. Let me just say, Mr. President, you are doing a lot to help take this organization up to the next level. And I very much appreciate you, and I appreciate all the work that you and all of the members of the board of directors and all the chapter presidents and the chapter members are all doing for the California Republican Assembly. I just want to take a moment to just give you your kudos.
Well, thank you for that. But again, I've got some strong members. I've got some members who have been involved in Republican politics longer than I, and I'm still learning. And I'm just so happy they're willing to teach and guide and direct. Amen,
amen, amen. So before we go, there's two things I'd like you to do. I'll give you the first one. The first one is let our fellow Republicans, our fellow conservatives know why they should celebrate Juneteenth.
Well, they should celebrate it because it's a day of freedom. It's in respect to the wonderful country that we live in. And as I said, all over the country, there are jubilant celebrations going on everywhere in recognition of this day. There is a move to make Juneteenth a national holiday. It's already a state holiday in Texas, of course, because people like to remember how wonderful this country is and what a jubilant time that was. And they like to continue, with that jubilance now in recognition of the wonderful land that we live in. And hopefully, when people think about Juneteenth and conservatives as well, that they have a realization that, this is a recognition of progress. Mm-hmm. From the day that Juneteenth came into effect, mm-hmm. there's been progress from then up until now. And so I would like conservatives to have that feeling and to join in the celebration with the understanding that this is an appreciation for the freedoms we have here and for the wonderful country we live in.
It was one of the first, it represents to me one of the first, as a Republican, it represents to me one of the first successes of the Republican Party and Republican values. And there are a number of those successes throughout history, but this one was really a celebration of the first, which was the freeing of a people, the righting of a great wrong. And that's one of the reasons why I believe that we should be celebrating it as Republicans. Now, with that, obviously, we want, the other thing I want to have folks do is I want folks to know why they should join the California Republican Assembly. Why is it vital for them to join the fight for our conservative values?
Well, it's important because, we are the conscience of the Republican Party. Our views, our values are what will make this country stronger, and definitely the state putting forth legislation that is good government. Conservatives put forth legislation that's good for everybody, that is beneficial for everybody. And unless we have a balance, at least a balance, in the House, in the Senate, then we are going to have a skewed point of view from legislators, and the laws will be skewed as well. And unless you put forth policies and that you support issues, that are conservative and that benefit all people, we are going to have increased challenges. And so I would like to encourage everyone who's watching this broadcast to become a member of the California Republican Assembly. Help us, help you, this country and this state. We need you with us.
Amen, sir. I always say, hey, folks, if you're not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. Look, we've made it real simple. All you do is you look in the description of the video, and there's a join link. Just click on that link, and you'll be right there where you can click on it, and you can sign up to become a member. It's really that simple. Anyway, sir, thank you so very much for coming on the program. Once again, very much appreciate all the work that you and all of the leaders of the California Republican Assembly do. Thank you for coming on the program. Hope to have you on again real soon.
Thank you very much, Craig. I'd love to be here.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Johnnie Morgan. Well, that'll be it for this episode of CRATV. We very much appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing the program, telling your friends about the California Republican Assembly. We are the conscience of the Republican Party. You guys take care. We'll talk to you again real soon.